Let's dive right into this explainer because today we're unpacking something genuinely wild. We are looking at a highly provocative text from January 2025 by an author named Su Feng. Now, whether you buy into his premises or not, this essay is a totally fascinating intellectual exercise. It maps out where our current tech and social trends might actually be taking us, laying out 8 distinct logical deductions. And the author claims these deductions prove that a specific utopian model of society isn't just possible, it's absolutely inevitable.
Right off the bat, we get this incredibly bold declaration. According to Shufang, global unification is not some distant political pipe dream. It's a certainty. But here is the real twist. He is not arguing this happens through, political revolutions or ideological warfare. Not at all. He thinks it's going to be driven by the things we interact with every single day. We're talking modern technology, the actions of billionaire entrepreneurs, and the absolute most fundamental of human desires. So, to make sense of this pretty complex philosophy, we're going to break his 8 deductions into 5 main themes, defining his specific terminology, looking at the technological drivers, the political shifts, human nature, and finally, the path to what he calls the Great Harmony.
All right, part 1, defining Zhongfang-style communism. We absolutely have to address the elephant in the room here, because the author uses a heavily loaded historical term but completely redefines it from the ground up. The text explicitly rejects Marxist and global party versions of communism. In fact, Zhu Feng goes out of his way in the very first paragraph to clarify that his concept has literally nothing to do with those historical models. Instead, he contrasts them with what he calls Zhu Feng-style communism, which he equates to the Great Harmony. This is an ancient concept sought by historical sages for centuries. It's basically a utopian vision based entirely on freedom, personal fulfillment, and natural alignment, rather than any sort of strict state control. Moving right along to part 2, technological drivers. This is where the essay gets super modern, taking a hard look at the internet and AI. What's really fascinating here is how Sui Feng sees modern tech as the primary engine for global unification. In his first deduction, he argues that artificial intelligence already possesses a globally integrated perspective. Internet programs inherently follow a borderless framework. So because we literally can't live without the internet anymore, and we definitely can't surpass the processing power of AI, we are quietly being molded by their universal values. Basically, we're being naturally programmed to think globally just by going about our daily lives. And when we look at the physical world of automation, he makes a staggering projection. Get a load of this number: 90%. That 90% is his prediction for future global unemployment. In Deduction 3, he outlines the automation effect. He posits that robots will inevitably replace human labor, to the point where they actually outnumber us. As human labor becomes obsolete and unemployment skyrockets to that massive 90% mark, societies will be forced, literally just for survival, to implement universal welfare systems. In his view, providing for an unemployed population ushers in this new era of resource sharing entirely by sheer necessity. Then we hit Deduction 7, which honestly might be the most surprising part of the whole text. He points directly to billionaires. He specifically calls out what he names the Elon Musk phenomenon. Shufang argues that capital in the hands of profit-driven, visionary entrepreneurs actually creates way more flourishing and progress than government control ever could. His logic? Governments are inherently limited because they just want to maintain local power. Entrepreneurs require a global vision to generate profit. So, ironically, these ultra-wealthy capitalists are the ones best equipped to build the borderless future that naturally leads to this great harmony. Let's move to part 3, the political shifts. Because if tech and global billionaires are driving us forward, what exactly happens to traditional nations? Well, according to Deduction 2, borders are living on borrowed time. Shufang argues that the pursuit of freedom of movement is a deeply intrinsic human trait. We just want to go wherever we choose. Citing real-world examples like the 29 countries Schengen area in Europe and the global rise of visa-free travel, the text claims border controls will eventually vanish completely. Once humanity can freely move across the earth without restriction, the geographical barriers preventing unification are totally dismantled. Which perfectly sets up Deduction 6, the inevitable decline of authoritarian regimes. Authoritarianism is the exact opposite of his Great Harmony, right? Because it relies on heavily monopolizing media to control the public. But the decentralized internet and AI operate entirely beyond traditional government control. As citizens naturally turn to these diverse, decentralized sources, traditional state media gets marginalized. The text argues that losing this grip on information will inevitably cause strict public control to collapse worldwide. Okay, part 4, human nature and lifestyle. The theories here aren't just about high-level economics or international politics. They actually dig into the most intimate aspects of our daily lives. Deduction 4 tackles our fundamental desires head-on. It poses a really fascinating question. Do our traditional social structures actually align with our natural human impulses? The author strongly suggests that for most of history, the answer has been a resounding no. So, breaking down Deduction 4, Xu Feng argues that human nature intrinsically craves novelty and change. He applies this directly to human relationships, stating that we naturally desire intimacy across diverse populations. We're generally reluctant to stick to strict single-partner marriages for life. According to the essay, as global connectivity explodes and people get more freedom, they'll naturally seek to escape the constraints of traditional marriage. Society will just gradually reorganize around broader, much more communal structures that actually fit these inherent desires. And he actually points to a real-world proof of concept for this in Deduction 5. The text highlights specific communities called Life Shanyuan. Established back in 2009, the author claims these are living, breathing evidence that his style of communism isn't just some theory. He states these groups have flourished for 17 years by living out these exact non-traditional principles. The argument is that once people actually experience this family-free communal lifestyle, they'll realize it's vastly superior, and the model will naturally spread across the globe. So, how do we actually get there? That brings us to our final section, the path to great harmony. We have the tech, the shifting politics, the changing social norms. How does it all come together? Deduction 8 frames this whole journey as an unstoppable law of societal evolution. Just look at the grand historical timeline he envisions. Step 1 was the primitive era of barbarism. Step 2 is where we are right now, the era of civilization, with its nations, capitalism, socialism, and strict marriage rules. But Step 3, the realization of Xu Feng-style communism, is viewed as the absolute highest form of human society. It's not a political choice. It is framed as an evolutionary certainty that literally no force can stop. And perhaps most importantly, check out this vivid quote. The author is absolutely adamant that this transition isn't some terrifying era of political coercion. There are no political campaigns, no forced confiscations of private property. Instead, he beautifully describes it as emerging gradually and naturally like spring rain nourishing the earth. It's framed as a totally joyful, voluntary transition. People will just let go of the old ways simply because this new, automated, globally connected society is a much better way to live. It is a lot to process, isn't it? When you step back and look at the rapid acceleration of AI, the blurring of our physical and digital borders, and the way social norms are shifting so quickly, you really have to ask yourself if these 8 deductions hold up. Is Xu Feng identifying genuine societal laws here, or is he just looking at modern tech through a wildly optimistic, utopian lens? And that is the ultimate question this text leaves us with. Thank you so much for joining this explainer. I hope this deep dive into these 8 logical deductions gave you a really clear understanding of a very unique philosophy. I highly encourage you to keep questioning how the technological and social systems we're building today might radically reshape the societies of tomorrow. Keep exploring, and I'll catch you next time.